Hello, it's Kia here from Kia Creates, bringing you journal inspiration, stickers and playful creativity. And today I have a video about making these handmade journals. This is probably my highest requested video ever. I get a lot of comments on all my social media platforms about these handmade journals that I work in, and I thought it was about time that I sat down and filmed how I make them and talked you through it. So this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to take you through the entire process from start to finish of making one of these handmade journals. So the first step is to gather materials for making pages. One of the things I love about making my own journals is I can have such a variety of mixed media in the pages, and I can make them out of all different things, and it's kind of like a recycling project. So here I have lined paper, I have pages from old calendars that I don't use anymore that I think look cool and would make cool pages. I have this little booklet of puzzles which featured one of my Puzzle Quest books in it, and I just thought it was cute because it's autumnal themed. I forgot to say I'm making these journals specifically in this video as Halloween journals, so everything has a kind of spooky theme to it in terms of what I'm using to make the pages. So this is a little wallpaper sample book, so it has this like metallic shiny paper, so I'll probably use some of that. These are all sheets of handmade recycled paper that I've created. I have a lot of them that are in this nice pumpkin spice shade of orange, so I'll be using some of those. Some brown card. I don't use everything that I put into this pile, but I like having a wide variety to choose from, so I just gather things from around my studio, including this pattern paper. So this is my autumnal pattern paper and patchwork paper that will be going onto my shop very soon. I have some candy striped bags, they're orange, so why not? This new Summerween paper that you may have seen in my Summerween journaling video. I also included some tea stain paper. I really like the ripped edges to this, it sort of just makes it look really rustic. And some experiments that I did with my mum and my little cousin where we just splattered paint onto a page. I thought it looked cool, but I had no idea what to do with it, so I was like, why not make some pages for this journal? Now we've gathered materials for pages, let's talk about the covers. So I have this autumnal pattern that I designed, and I had it printed onto some canvas fabric. It's like very light canvas, and my mum helped me make these amazing covers. When I say help me, I mean she made them for me. She basically just used scrap cardboard and sewed the material onto it with a little bit of padding, so it's like this sort of cushioned cover. And then I glued some pattern paper to the inside to match and to cover up any of the sewing that you could see on the other side. And it's so simple, but it's so effective. I think they look so good, and they're also really easy to work with because it's only some cardboard, a little bit of padding and some fabric. They're quite easy to sew into. I should say as well though that you really can make a journal cover out of anything. Here's a few little journals that I made with the method you're about to see, but they just have card as the cover. Sometimes it's quite fun to experiment with what you use as the cover. Once you learn this method, you can really use anything you want. This is just sort of sturdier paper, but I covered it with sticky back plastic after completely covering it in stickers. That made a fun cover. And then this is part of a magazine, but I've stuck it onto some cards, so you can really use anything you want for a cover. As long as it's possible to sew through it, you can use this method. The next step in the process is cutting the pages to size. So I basically just take everything from that pile of materials that we gathered, fold every page in half, and cut it all down into pages using scissors or a guillotine, or sometimes I just rip it with my fingers if I want those ripped edges. It's quite nice to have some large pages that take up the full space of the journal cover, and then some smaller ones as well. I always find in a junk journal, especially with mixed media pages, it's really nice to have a variety of sizes. Now, once I've sorted out all of those pages and cut them to size, as you'll see, a lot of making a journal, well for me anyway, is sorting out the pages. So here I'm sorting everything into 3 piles because I'm making 3 journals. So first of all, I'm just like checking I have a good mix and balance of these interesting page materials throughout each journal, and that there's enough pages to kind of make it have a nice bulk. It always bulks out a lot more once you actually start working onto the pages, so I try not to overfill them this time because I have done that in the past. But I'm just sorting through the piles here, and I'm quite happy with the balance of pages. So these are going to turn into 3 journals, and I'm going to show you how. Now we're moving on to grouping the pages into signatures. In bookbinding, signatures just means a group of pages, and this journal is going to have 3 signatures, so yet again I'm sorting pages into piles of 3, but obviously the difference now is all of these are going to go into one journal. So again, first I just sort them out in terms of getting a balance of the page types in each signature, because I like to have the same kind of thing in each, and then some big pages, some little pages, and to sort of spread out the interesting mixed media that I've got in an equal way between the 3 signatures. Once I've got my grouping for the signatures, I then go and start putting them in the actual order that I would like the pages to be in the journal. So they're in these little folded sections, so I like layer them on top of each other and just kind of go through and try to get a nice order, like imagine turning the page and see which pages look nice next to each other, or where I've put a very small page I'd probably have a big page next to it, that kind of thing. And I just go through, and it's quite a fun process because you can't really do it right or wrong. However you do it, it's quite nice to like just put them all in and then forget, and then when you've actually sewn it into the journal you can be like, oh yeah, I forgot to put this page in here, and it's a nice little surprise. So once I've got these 3 signatures ready, and remember you can make as many signatures as you want, you could just make a journal with 1, you could do more, but for me 3 seems to be the magic number, so I always make 3 signatures. And once these 3 signatures are ready, it's time to sew them in. And this is how it looks once it's all done. I did sew this first journal off camera, it's just been a little while and I wanted to get back into it, but don't worry, we're going to pick up where we left off with the next one, and I'll show you how to sew the 3 signatures in. I just wanted to give you a little glimpse at what it looks like once it's done. So here's this one I'm going to be keeping for myself, and then the other 2, and hopefully some more by then, I'm going to be taking to the autumn market in September, and if I've got any left I will be putting them on my website, so I'll let you know as and when these become available. If you don't fancy making it yourself, or you just kind of like the look of these and you'd like to get your hands on one, hopefully I will have some more for sale, but also hopefully they go well at market. We'll see. I've been enjoying making these, so I'm probably going to make more. But anyway, you're here for the tutorial, so let's crack on with that. This next journal, as you can see, I've sorted out the pages into 3 signatures like we talked about, and the next stage that I think is very important is the paper clippy stage, and this is where I have found the more paper clips I use, the easier the entire process is. So for all of these signatures, I just paper clip the heck out of them, like just add as many as you can. Sometimes it's kind of tricky when you've got those small pages to have a paper clip that's big enough to hold it in place, but it's worth persevering with because this is going to hold all of those pages in place when you're trying to sew it in. And I've learnt through a lot of trial and error, so you don't have to. It's really tricky to try to sew in a load of pages when they're all loose and flopping about everywhere. So learn from my mistakes, use an incredible amount of paper clips, and it will make things easier for you. Now we're on to the sewing stage. Ooh, I feel like this is the bit that people find intimidating and think it's going to be really difficult, but I promise you it can be pretty easy. So I've made this little template. I'm going to be using a stitch called the pamphlet stitch today, and if you are someone that prefers to refer back to written instructions, I do have this little printable based on this stitch. I made this for Colin's kids for a book called My Awesome Year, so this was to teach kids how to make mini journals, so it's quite clearly explained. It's pretty well done if I say so myself. So if that's something you think that would help you with this, then definitely go and check this out. I'll link it in the description to this video. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this step by step and show you that it doesn't have to be that tricky. So we have our template. It has 3 holes. I've labelled the top and the bottom so that I don't get them mixed up, because that can happen. And I'm going to make 3 sets of these 3 holes down the spine. I'll be using a tool called an awl to make this. It's a bookbinding tool. I would say it's an essential for journal making because I think you would struggle to make the holes and sew in the pages without it. I just find it really helpful. So I mark the center hole first, making sure that I hold the template in the kind of place where I'm going to want the pages, because when I started out I did kind of accidentally not line them up properly and make it wonky. So I used that middle hole to line up the template nicely with the rest of the cover before I make the top and the bottom holes properly. And I kind of move these, I make them in the dead center to begin with, then I move them slightly left, make another set of 3 holes, and slightly right and make another set of 3 holes. It will make more sense when I show you the close-up if that didn't really make sense, but it's basically 3 holes for each signature, so they're going to be in a little line. If you saw the spine that I showed you of the last journal I sewed in, you can kind of get an idea of where those holes are. So here's me making the left one in a little close-up. There you go, you can see it a bit better there. If you've not made one before, it is probably better to start with a bit plainer background paper because the pattern does make it a little bit harder to see things. But you can see on the bottom row of holes, at least on this pumpkin, those in a row. They don't have to be super neat. I mean, if that's your style, fine, but I like my journals slightly wonky, a little bit perfectly imperfect. Now once we've made 3 sets of 3 holes in the cover, we're going to make 3 holes in each signature. So I just line them up on the cover first to make sure that when I'm placing the template on these, they are actually in the right kind of place for the journal. I do that by lining up the middle hole with where I want it to go. By figuring out where you want the centre hole to go first and making that first so that it lines up nicely with the middle of the journal, it just means that when you then use that template to make the top and the bottom hole, these pages are going to sit in there nicely, because sometimes you can use the template, make the holes in the signature, then when you sew it in you realise it's quite a bit far up or far down out of the cover. As I said, slightly wonky or perfectly imperfect is fine with me when it comes to how far apart the signatures are from each other or the way that the stitches sit on the spine of the journal. But one thing I really want to sit neatly is the pages inside the journal. I don't want them to feel like they're kind of coming out because it's not very nice to journal on. All of these little things, preferences, tips will probably make a lot more sense if and when you're actually in the process of making one of the journals. Hopefully this will give you like a good place to start and it'll give you a step by step to follow, but as you make more you'll kind of find the little things that you like to do differently or the little preferences that you have. Okay, now it's time to sew in our first signature, and when I say first I actually mean last because I always start with the signature at the back of the journal. I'm going to be using this large needle. Well, I guess it's large compared to sewing needles, but it's probably quite small compared to other bookbinding needles. And I usually use either just normal embroidery thread like this or waxed thread for is it macrame or macrame? I don't know, but that kind of waxy thread. Either one seems to work fine for me. It'll probably depend a little bit on what you're using for the cover and how smoothly you can pull those threads through. Okay, let's sew. I've threaded my needle. I'm putting it through the middle hole in my signature of pages and then the middle hole on the rightmost line, which I've circled on this little diagram for you so you can see where it goes. I pull through the thread, making sure to hold the end of it so that I don't pull it all the way through, and then I'm coming back on that same line, the right hand line, in the top hole. Sometimes I use the awl like this to poke the hole through so I can actually see where to put the needle, because sometimes it's tricky with the pattern fabric to see where it's going to come back in. So I come back through that hole in the cover, then I go back through the top hole of the signature of pages like this, and obviously keep hold of that tail of the thread when you pull it through. There we go, and just like that we have made the first half of our pamphlet stitch. This is what it looks like on the back. I try to make sure I pull it taut but not too tight because you do want a little bit of wiggle room. Then the next thing I do is lift this thread up out of the way because you're going to go back into exactly the same hole, the centre hole, and the same hole in the cover as well, so exactly the same as the first place you went, and pull that through tightly, obviously not too tight, and then you're going to go into the only remaining hole on this line that we haven't used, which is this bottom right one. It looks like I'm going back from the inside, but I'm not. I'm just using the awl again to show you. I'm coming back in from the outside of the cover like this, and I'm going to pull it through the cover and then continue to sew this through the lower hole on the signature of pages. And once you've pulled that through, congratulations, your pamphlet stitch is done. We'll tie it off in a minute, but I'm just going to show you how it should look on the back. So here it is. It's just like two connected long stitches. See, I told you it was simple and easy. Now we just tie it off. So I usually do this by threading the needle under the top loop of thread, and then I use that to tie a little bow. And disclaimer, I am rubbish at tying bows, but I do try my best. The curse of being left-handed, I swear. If you're using waxed threads, you can sometimes tie a knot and then just melt those a little bit to seal it, but I've always found that tying a double knot with a little bow in these embroidery threads just works fine. So once you're able to do this and sew in a group of pages or a signature with this pamphlet stitch, the process is just repeating the same thing. So it's sewing the middle signature like this onto the center row of 3 dots, so it's not really a row, it's a column I suppose, and then it's sewing in the first line of 3 dots, the leftmost line, the first signature of the journal, so the one that you want to come first, and that's how they're going to fit in there. So we're just going to repeat the exact same process. Usually I would make all the holes in all the signatures before I start, but I guess I was just excited to show you how I sew it in. So this is just a sped up process of me making the holes in the first 2 signatures and then sewing them into the journal cover in the exact same way as I showed you with the first signature we did, or I guess the last signature of the journal, using that pamphlet stitch. And the first couple that you make, you'll probably find it a little bit fussy, a little bit tricky, but it soon gets better. This one, we were talking about perfectly imperfect, it's slightly wonky, and I thought typical that the one that I make on camera is a little bit wonky and the one that I make off camera is better. That's just how it goes sometimes. So I love this bit because it gets exciting because I start to realise that I've actually made a journal from scratch and it's really come together, and it's the bit where I flip through and I take all of the paper clips out. It's so satisfying to see it all come to life. It's so crazy and so cool to me that you could just take a pile of random materials and kind of scraps like this, and just by organising them into a few groups and sewing them into a cover, you can get an actual journal. Look at this transition from materials to journal. So that's the third one made that with the same technique. They're all obviously a little bit different, and that's what's so special about them. They're completely unique. So I'm going to give you a flip through of this one so you can see all of these mixed media pages in all of their glory. And when I said that I was making 3 journals in this video, that was the intention, but I actually end up making 4. The fourth one is a little bit different, so I'll meet you at the end of this flip through for that. So there we go, those are the 3 journals that I intended to make today, and then an impulse decision struck me as I found this journal cover that my mum made for me in really cute Halloween material. I did not design this fabric, but it matches a little pencil case or pouch that she made for me, and I thought, how sweet, I have to make a journal to match this pencil case. For this one, I wanted to try something a little bit different in terms of pages, so instead of using lots of different materials and mixed media, I decided to use loads of this recycled paper that I handmade because I love it, I love all the colours in it, and sometimes I feel like the paper itself is artwork and I don't even want to like cover it up that much. I just love looking at all of the little textures and colours that I created. So I had a go at making an entire journal out of this recycled paper. So I did the exact same method with the pamphlet stitch and with 3 signatures, but every signature is just a little group of handmade recycled paper. I'm honestly not even sure what I'm going to use this journal for. It might end up just being like a little catalogue for me to look through at all of the cool recycled paper that I've made, who knows. But sometimes it's nice to have these things around and inspiration strikes when you least expect it, and I might figure out a way that I want to use this, so we'll see. But for now, I just enjoyed making it, and it's just fun and cool to see all of my handmade paper in here with its deckled edges. I just think it looks really cute, and it's really satisfying too how you can tie it up and pop it into the little pouch and it fits perfectly. 4 journals later and you thought we were done? You should know by now that we're never done. I've always got something else that I want to make. I really love trying to find interesting, unique ways to fasten these journals, so that's what we're going to do now. My bead era had a crossover with my dried clay era and my Halloween era, which resulted in me making these handmade clay beads in the shape of candy corn and pumpkins that I painted, and so I decided to thread some of those onto some stretchy elastic, and I'm going to tie those around the journals to make these unique little fastenings for each one. They just go so well with the pumpkin-y autumnal themes. I'm very happy about how they look, and you'll see they just tie the journal up really easily because you can tie and untie the string if you want, but the thing I love about this elastic is you can just take the fastening on and off. You'll see what I mean when I tie them to the journals. Oh, and I also put some beads on each end of each string in candy corn colours, of course. So I literally just tie these around the centre of the journal, tie them in a double knot. I do them tight enough just to kind of keep them closed but not too tight, because I obviously want there to be room to expand when the journal inevitably gets massive after being filled in, and this is what it looks like. I've made some fastenings kind of like this with stretchy string before, and I've hung little charms off it, which is a fun idea. For these ones I obviously just did the little group of beads, but who knows, I might add things later on. I made one of the fastenings with white elastic, one with yellow and one with black, because I felt like they were Halloweeny colours and I've run out of orange. And yeah, those are the journals. I think they look complete now with their nice fastenings that you can take on and off like this. I think they're ready to go to market. And yeah, I've kind of found my balance now between, I used to decorate them a lot more inside, but then sometimes I feel like that takes away the opportunity for people who get them to decorate them. And then on the other end of the scale, you have journals that are a little bit too plain and kind of lack inspiration. For me, this is a nice balance. It's got some mixed media in there. It can give you some ideas on how to get started because none of the pages are plain. They're all like a little bit strange or interesting, but there's still enough blank space in there for whoever gets the journal to kind of play around with their own personal style as well. As you know, playful creativity is always the aim for me. I always play around with making these journals, even if they have the same cover fabric, No two journals are the same, and that's what I love about them. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's been worth the wait, because I know I've been saying that I'll make one for a long time. Please let me know if you have any questions at all in the comments, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. But ultimately, I just hope you have fun with this, and remember that your journal is yours. It can look however you want, it can work however you want. So yeah, just make one that kind of aligns with your personal style. Don't be afraid to experiment and try different things out. Whether you'll be making a journal or not, thank you so much for watching this. And if you don't fancy making one, or you just like the look of mine, be sure to subscribe to my email newsletter to get notified when they reach my shop, or join my Patreon. I love my patrons. They get early access to any collection drop, any new thing on my shop. So definitely go and check that out if you're interested. I'll leave the links to everything in the description below. Thank you again so much for watching, and please come back again soon. We are entering the Halloween journaling season. I'm really excited for Halloween Journal Challenge to start, so I'm going to have some very exciting things to share with you then. So I'll hopefully see you back here for that, and in the meantime, happy journal making! Bye!